The corruption trial of Jacob Zuma will not go ahead just yet. This after Judge Piet Koen postponed the prosecution today in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. We will now wait on the Supreme Court of Appeal's President Mandisa Maya to reconsider the eNCA's dismissal of Zuma's special plea to force the removal of prosecutor Billy Downer. And of course, the former president wasn't in court today because he had, according to his lawyer, a medical emergency. Well, let's speak now to Thulasizwe Simelane, who has been watching proceedings in Pietermaritzburg and joins us now. Hi there, Thula. So let's start with Jacob Zuma's health concerns. We are hearing that he is in hospital undergoing tests. What more can you tell us?
Well, health concerns, Sally, is perhaps understating it a little bit, because the words used, and in fact without exaggerating, we can quote the words used by Advocate Dalimpofu in court, who said a health emergency. There was a health emergency of sorts, and also that also mentioned by Simelane, who speaks on behalf of the Jacob Zuma Foundation. But at this point, we don't know whether it's anything, beyond him having some kind of a health emergency, which is the word that, as I say, was used, being taken to hospital, and what his disposition is at the moment. All we know is what Simelane of the Jacob Zuma Foundation has been telling us, and what Advocate Dalimpofu presented to the court, in court, to explain his absence. As we know, he is supposed to be in court now that we are, in fact, in trial mode. So that's all we have, and that the a health certificate was going to be forwarded to the court for them to know what the exact nature of the condition is of former President Jacob Zuma. A few minutes ago, I had a brief conversation with Advocate Dalimpofu. I bumped into him, and I was trying to get as much as I can get out of him. And he says he cannot say any more about his state of health other than what he already said inside court. But let's take you to what Simelane has told us then officially about him being hospitalized. Health emergency is the word that they used. Then they're saying he's been in hospital undergoing tests. Take a listen to Simelane speaking to my colleague Siphamandla Goke a bit earlier on.
President Zuma is in the hospital right now as we speak. Doctors are running tests, and they don't have test results as yet, but is under very strict observations by the doctors. So that's where things are right now. It's not even at home. He's taken to a hospital.
Which hospital and where?
That's a security issue. I can't tell you that. But
is it in KwaZulu-Natal?
This is in South Africa. So let's leave it at that. He's in the hospital. We'll keep giving the updates as it goes.
How is the situation? Not critical, I assume. He's relatively stable.
He's unwell. Let's leave it there, and the degrees and whatever of that is a technical matter which I haven't got competence of. And I was just here, I just keep getting a report from the doctors. In fact, I can tell you now the doctors have already sent a medical certificate with a lot of detail, but obviously that detail is confidential. But there is a medical certificate as we speak.
They send it to the court?
Yeah, they've sent it to the lawyer. So the lawyer, I'm sure, in the chambers, they would have shown it to the judge.
So it seems to us at this stage that the former president may well wake up tomorrow in hospital, which means that he will spend part of it, at least part of his 80th birthday, in hospital tomorrow. Of course, we do wait for further details. Possibly he is hoping to get out later this evening. But let's focus now on what actually happened in court, because obviously the fact that the former president has had a medical emergency meant that he wasn't present in court today. But that was not the only issue that was under discussion. Also, yet again, his appeal on appeal, I suppose is how you put it, to the eNCA. What was decided about that? What exactly is contained in his appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal?
Well, Sally, other than him being hospitalized and undergoing tests, it was otherwise a rare good day for Jacob Zuma in court today, in that just a few moments ago, as I was speaking to Advocate Dalimpofu, in fact, he says he hopes the developments of today in court will help former President Jacob Zuma, recover and feel better as soon as possible, because it was a good day, as I say, in that they emerged with the outcome they wanted. They wanted this case to be postponed because they have written and have submitted an application to the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Justice Simelane, in terms of the Section 17(2)(f) of the Superior Courts Act of 2013, and in that it's a provision that I imagine is not used quite often, because it does require exceptional circumstances where a majority of the court has come to a decision, but under those exceptional circumstances, the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal believes that there's reason for her to remit the issue back to the court, the SCA itself, to reconsider and possibly, where warranted, vary its decision and order. And so that's the process they are hoping Justice Simelane will find, that actually there are exceptional circumstances in this case for her to exercise that authority, that role which she can exercise. So where does that leave us? Judge Piet Koen coming to the conclusion that because there's something pending, whether it's an appeal or an application for leave to appeal, or in this case, this application for a reconsideration, a relook at this case, it has the effect of basically saying that you can't proceed because there are other sections, in fact, in the Superior Courts Act, Section 18 in particular, which provides for putting processes on ice pending the outcome of an appeal of one nature or another. And so when you put things on ice, you ensure that the person affected doesn't suffer prejudice that in some instances can be irreversible. So Judge Piet Koen being willing to put everything on pause, and also importantly, Sally, before we hear from the judge, Judge Piet Koen not coming to the party in as far as the argument, and coming to the party perhaps is not the right expression, but not buying into the arguments of the prosecution, that they believe that all of this is mala fide, it's basically not genuine, it is a delaying tactic and done in a way to basically waste the court's time. He says he needs more to be put before him before he can come to that conclusion, but he can't reach that conclusion based on what has been presented to him. And that's important, Sally, because does the judge, within his power, to make a decision if he feels that these are undue delays, to actually order that actually, no, enough. Let's proceed with the trial. Take a listen to what Judge Piet Koen said in delivering his decision on the postponement earlier on.
When weighing all the relevant facts and circumstances alluded to by the parties, the conclusion I have reached is that the trial must be adjourned to allow the reconsideration application submitted to the President of the SCA pursuant to the proviso to Section 17(2)(f) of the Superior Courts Act to be disposed of. Criminal trials are not generally adjourned sine die. There is no compelling reason why the present trial should be adjourned sine die. It is well overdue. As much as the interests of justice demand that Mr. Zuma's reconsideration application should be allowed to be disposed of, there is also the interests of justice that demand that litigation must reach finality. The future progress of the trial must be closely managed by appropriate judicial oversight. As soon as the decision of the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal is made and those proceedings are disposed of, the trial should proceed, absent any other compelling reason.
All right, so that's going to postpone into May. Now, Thulas, I'm going to ask you to hold my hand here, because I want to ask you about what the Jacob Zuma Foundation said yesterday, and that is that they're planning to launch a private prosecution, essentially to once again look into Billy Downer. Could you tell us if this attempt at a private prosecution would have any impact on what is currently underway in court?
As far as the National Prosecuting Authority is concerned, Sally, absolutely not. and it's for various reasons. One, at the moment, there aren't any proceedings, along the lines of a private prosecution in terms of Section 7 of the Criminal Procedure Act that are underway against Billy Downer at this stage. So nothing on the table as we speak. That's one. But secondly, even in court today, Advocate Dalimpofu, in contrast with the Jacob Zuma Foundation's spokesperson yesterday, Advocate Dalimpofu didn't seek to make much of the fact that they are going to be doing this private prosecution of Advocate Billy Downer on charges that have been laid by Mr. Zuma against him. And I think, basically he had a good reason, Dalimpofu, for not making much out of that, because I do imagine it would have come up to say, but as we speak, there isn't a process that is actually underway. Contrast that with what the Jacob Zuma Foundation was saying yesterday, which is still their stance, by the way, that it is not proper and appropriate for a person, in their words, who is going to be accused number one in a matter of days and weeks in that private prosecution to be then leading the prosecution of the person who has instigated the private prosecution of that state prosecutor. As I'm saying it, I realize that it gets convoluted, but nevertheless, that's it. That's the essence of the arguments, Sally. So at this point, it doesn't seem that it has any impact. We know that for a private prosecution, in terms of Section 7 of the Criminal Procedure Act, the Director of Public Prosecutions needs to indicate that they will not be pursuing a prosecution of the matter at hand, and that has already happened. The NPA has confirmed multiple times with eNCA that actually that's the decision that has been taken by the DPP for KwaZulu-Natal, that these charges against Billy Downer cannot be sustained, and therefore there will be no prosecution. The other element of it is that the person needs to have a sufficient interest or a peculiar interest in the matter, and the former President Zuma's team will be saying, well, he actually does, because the conduct that they allege took place directly affects his rights to a fair trial. So that's where we stand at the moment.
Thank you very much for clearing that up. I was getting a bit lost in all the various court applications. eNCA's Thulasizwe Simelane in Pietermaritzburg.